Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Splendor, and today's video is a continuation of the shift dress project we started on this channel. Okay, so without further ado, I'll just get right started. So the first thing to do is to place my lining on my table. I'll just fold it into two like I just did, okay, and then I'll go ahead to place my fabric on the lining. This is the fabric we already cut in our last video, okay. So after placing it on the table, I'll just adjust it a bit to ensure that the 2 inches we added at the hem, it's marked out properly. Okay, I'm just trying to retake the measurement for you guys to see, and then having placed it on the lining, I'll go ahead to cut it using my scissors. But before I do that, I'll just confirm my measurement for you guys to see. Okay, the length of this dress is 37 plus the 2-inch folding allowance that I marked, making it 39. Now I'll be cutting my lining on the length of 37. Okay, this is because the 2-inch extra will be used to fold in our lining. So after confirming my measurement, for those of you who haven't watched the last video, I'll just go ahead to cut it out like you can see. All right, so I'll just do this carefully. Okay, now after cutting it out, I'll just keep it aside and do the same for the back. Now you remember we have a slit at the front of our fabric, so I'll cut the same slit on my lining. You can as well sew before you cut the slit on your lining. It depends on what you want. Some people just go ahead to sew it first before cutting it open. Either way, you're still on the right track. Okay, so now this is just to confirm it. This is just to show you guys what it looks like. Can you see that the fabric is longer than the lining? Okay, this is because we're going to use the fabric to fold in the lining. Okay, so after doing that, I'll just keep it aside, and then I'll be doing the same thing for the back panel. Okay, I'll just fold the lining for my back panel into two like I did for the front panel, and then I'll place my back panel on my lining like you can see. I'll adjust it properly just to reconfirm. I'll take my measurement for you guys to see. This is 39 inches. Okay, so the 2 inches that we marked for folding in our lining is also at the back panel. Okay, so after doing that, I'll just go ahead to cut it out. I tell you, if you pay attention to this tutorial, you'll find this very easy to make at home. Like I said in my last video, I wanted to see some of your projects that you have done. So after watching this video to the end, please go ahead to make a shift dress and tell us how it turned out in the comment section. Okay, so now after doing this, the next thing is to just okay, I'm still trying to illustrate the folding allowance like you can see, like I did for the front panel, and then I'll just keep this aside. So having done that, now I'll be placing an interface on my neck. Okay, so now this is the medium interface. Okay, so I'll just cut it in the shape of the neck. This has a way of giving the neck like a stamina. Okay, it just gives the neck a stamina, and then it will help you in your sewing. Okay, so I'll just go ahead to trim it properly. So this is an interface that I already have at home. I've used out of it already, as you can see. So I'll just go ahead to trim it properly to give me my desired shape. So after trimming it, I'll place it on my fabric. So this is it. I'll still go ahead to trim it some more. This looks so big. The essence of this is just to give a definition to my neck, just to help define the neck properly. Okay, so I'll just go ahead to trim it, and then I'll place it like you can see. So this is it. I think I'm okay with this. Now the next thing I'll do is to go ahead to iron it on my fabric. Now ensure that your iron is not so hot, because if it's too hot it will not be able to gum. And then check your interface very well. There is a part of it that sticks, so that's the part you're going to place on your fabric. So you just go ahead and iron it like I am doing right now. Iron it properly. Ensure that your iron is not so hot, and let it just be moderate. So when you finish ironing it, if you like, you can go ahead to cut the slit open like it is on the fabric, or you can wait until you have sewn it before you go ahead to cut it open, but it really doesn't matter. Now this is my lining. I'm just placing it for you guys to see. So the lining has nothing to do with the interfacing. This is just an illustration that when you want to sew, you go down and sew around your neck. It will just it has a way to define the neck of your dress. That is the function of the interfacing. So I'll just do the same thing for the back panel. Like I said, I already have an interfacing at home, so that is why you can see it in pieces. I just need a little piece of it, so let me just make do with what I have at home. So I'll just place it like I did for the front one, the front panel, and then I'll just cut it to my desired size. So, and then I'll go ahead to trim it and just place it on my back panel. So after cutting the interfacing for the front and the back panel, the next thing to do is to sew your fabric to your lining. Do not forget to fold in your fabric at the edge. Remember we left 2 inches at the hem. Okay, so this 2 inches is what we use to fold in our lining when we want to sew. So this is what it's going to look like by the time you have sewn it with your lining. Now let me just place it on the linings for you guys to see. So I'll just place it on the lining for you people to see, and then I'll go ahead to sew it at this edge like this. All right, so now remember that there's a slit at the front by the time you are sewing it. When you're done sewing, you can cut it open, or you can cut it open and then go ahead to sew it. So now I have sewn the interfacing and the lining and my fabric together like you can see. So you can see the line, you can see my stitching. All right, so this is it for the front. And then for the hem of my dress, can you see? So after sewing it, this is what it looks like. You're using your fabric to turn in the lining. So the next thing I'll do is to sew the 2 edges of my dress. Now I'll just go to my sewing machine to sew it for you guys to see. All right, so after sewing it, this is what it looks like. Now I have finished sewing the edges, the hemming, and then this is what it looks like. All right, so by the time you turn it open, your lining would be inside. Even when you bend your dress, it will be difficult to see the lining. This is a a way to make your dress or your stitching very neat. Everything will be inside. So I'm just trying to trim out the excess lining on the dress. All right, so I'll just trim the both side of the excess lining. So after trimming them, I'll go ahead to trim the neck as well, and then I'll open up I'll just go ahead to open up my interfacing and then cut out every excess fabric there. So now I'm also notching the neck. This will help my neck lap very well by the time I turn my fabric the right side out. So after notching it, I'll just trim out the excess on the armhole. I'll do it for both sides and then go ahead to turn out the right face of my stitching. All right, so this is what it looks like. Okay, so you do it gently and then ensure all the edges are out properly. This dress is so easy to make and is one of my favorite, dresses. When I want to, if I'm in doubt, I don't know what to wear, I just pick one of my shift dresses and put it on. Very easy to make, very, very easy to make. So ensure that all the edges are out. All right, so after doing that for the edge, for the hem, I'll just adjust the neck properly. You can use your scissors to bring out the edge on the neck. Okay, that's slit at the neck, just use your scissors preferably to bring it out. So this is what our shift dress looks like when you turn the right side out. The dress is already coming out beautifully. So can you see that the interface help in defining the neck? And then can you also see that the hemming is neat? We used it to turn in our lining. So this is it for the front panel. Very easy. So we'll just repeat the same thing for the back panel as well. You trim out the excess lining and then go ahead to turn the right side out. But before you do that, you notch the neck like we did for the front and then turn out the right side. So this is the two panels now, the front panel and the back panel. Okay, looking beautiful already. Now the next thing to do is to join the two sides together. But before I do that, I'm going to be joining my shoulder, the front shoulder and the back shoulder. So I'll place in my front shoulder into my back shoulder like you can see. I'm taking it slowly for you guys to see, and then I'll just stitch. That is where I'll be stitching, so that by the time you finish stitching we can't find any edge. The edge will be sewn inside the back shoulder. So you remember the different fabric cuts that we're going to be using for the sleeve of our dress. Okay, now I'll be sewing a loose stitch on the line that we created in our last video. So now I'm just trying to sew a loose stitch on it. All right, so this is it. Ensure that it is a loose stitch because it is on this stitch that we're going to be pulling to create our gathers. If the stitching is tight, you will not be able to pull it. All right, so we'll just sew it on the two lines that we marked when we were cutting our fabric. For those of you who haven't watched the video, I'll be placing the link on on the screen, so you just click and watch the first tutorial. All right, so I'm just doing it for the second line, so I will cut it and then do it for the second sleeve. But before we go ahead to pull, I'll just sew the edges of this fabric we're going to be using as our sleeve. At the edge of it, I'll be sewing it into 1/2 inch, which I just did for the top, and then the down I sewed it 1 inch. Okay, so I did it for the two sleeve, and this is what it looks like. So right now I'm just going ahead to pull out the fabric, like you can see. So this is what it looks like to gather a fabric. Because the stitching is loose, it's easy to pull, so you just pull it until you get your desired measurements that you want for your gathered fabric. All right, so this is what it looks like. Now the sleeve that we cut, I'm just going to place it to ensure that it gives me the measurements of my sleeve. Okay, so this is what it looks like, guys. Now this is all right. So I'm just trying to illustrate that by the time you place the band that we also cut out, it's gonna come out like this. I have gone ahead to sew it on my sleeve. So can you see how it came out? So the next thing to do is to place the band on the sleeve. You sew it by 1/4 inch, and then you fold it in and go ahead to sew it. Okay, so now I'm just showing you how to sew it. I'm just sewing it by 1/4 inch, like you can see. After sewing it, I'll go ahead to fold it downwards, and then I'll fold it in by 1/4 inch as well. So I'll just fold it in like this. Can you see it? So I'll go ahead to sew it for you guys to see. Like I said earlier, this tutorial is so easy to make. You know, you can play around it, create something different that you want, however you want to, just play around it. Shift dresses are usually fine when, you know, there are as in creativities on it. Okay, so this is what the sleeve looks like. Can you see, guys? Tell me, is this not easy? This is so easy. Okay, so easy to make, very easy to make, and as well very neat. Can you see that? So I don't know what you're waiting for. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, do you want me to remind you? Support your girl, hit the subscribe button, like, share with your family and friends. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who wants to know how to make a shift dress. Okay, so after doing that, I'll just go ahead to join my sleeve together, like you can see. So I'm just joining it together. For any stitching you want to do, make sure you do a back stitch so that your stitching do not loosen. All right, so I'll just join the sleeve together to get my round sleeve, and then this is it. Now the next thing to do is to take the measurement for my sleeve. Okay, I'll just take that measurement, the round sleeve measurement. Okay, so after measuring it, the figure that I got, ensure you follow the line properly, and then the figure that I got, I'll keep it and then go ahead to also measure my armhole. I'm just trying to trim out the excess fabric on my armhole. All right, so I'll also go ahead to measure my armhole to ensure that the measurement I got on my sleeve is what I got on the armhole, so that by the time I am joining the two of them together, I won't be having any overlapping. Okay, so the measurements are the same, it is accurate. So now there are two ways to join your sleeve. You can use the edge where you sewed and then the edge of your side. You just join the two sides together. By the time you sew, it will be the same. Or you can start from the top. You just notch the middle of your sleeve and join it to the middle of your shoulder, where you joined your shoulder for your front panel and back panel together. Like you can see, by the time you sew the two sides together, you still get the same thing. Okay, but I like to start from my shoulder, all right, so that in case even if there's any adjustment, it will be towards the sides that I can easily adjust. All right, so I'm just joining my sleeve now to my armhole. I placed the right side facing the right, and then I am stitching it. Okay, so by the time I finish stitching and I turn it the right side out, it will look like this. So this is what it looks like, guys. Is this not beautiful? This is so beautiful. So this is the outcome of our shift dress. Can you see the neck? Can you see the sleeve? I went ahead to insert pockets. Okay, I realized later that I wanted pockets on my dress, so I went ahead to put pockets, and I think I love it some more now. All right, so this is my pocket is so deep, and I like it that my phone can enter it and I can put money in my pocket. So guys, if you love this video and you learned one or two things, kindly subscribe and share with your family and friends. I'll see you in my next video, but for now, stay confident. Bye bye.